Okay, so this is more of a very technical kind of like presentation, and as such, feel free to have any inquiries at almost any stage in time. But for base coordination, usually you can note them down and then ask any question. Okay, ask any question after. So to begin with, this is more of voices from the edge, running DNS in Uganda. We are going to be following this outline. I'll just quickly run through it, the role of DNS, DNS and RENU, DNS management, and all the others. So to start off, DNS actually does a lot of things. Aside from just being a phone book, there's a variety of other services, of other items which it helps you with. Some of them include when you're accessing the internet, you will always need, you might not know it, but your DHCP will always, your DHCP request always carries the DNS IP addresses, which it will be using to as its caching resolver. When you want your content to be listed out there, one of the very starting points is always your domain being active. For this case, I'm considering those ones registered, those ones with .ug, so it will have to be active, registered at I3C, and it's ANS, that's the authoritative name server, publicly accessible. So your authoritative name server is that set of DNS servers which are like the source of truth for your domain. A domain like the one for sorority, that is san.ac.ug, it would be having CP1 and CP2 of RENU, and while those two are active, the content of sorority university can be accessible. So to send emails, there's a record called MX. It's also in your DNS. You need to be having that one present. Furthermore, there are some others like the DMAC, the PTR, and the SPF. Those are extra TXT records which are used to really confirm that you are truly owning this email server. If in most cases nowadays, if your mail server does not have an associate PTR record, Google will decline it. They will be having your emails listed as potential spam. So all those extra records are all saved within the DNS server. So when you're getting things like SSL certificates, getting discounts on services and all others, things like MSN, things like the Google Cloud or something, in most cases they require that you validate your domain. Still validating your domain requires that you have something like a CNAME which they've given you, or one of the emails which is listed as a public admin email. So for you to execute that as well, you need to be having the DNS registering either the CNAME provided to you, or DNS helping you having your email server easily accessible. So with those few, there's a lot more. It can be clearly evident that DNS is a really critical resource for an organization. So at RENU, we manage the DNS for more than 100 institutions. These range from universities, a couple of schools, some research organizations, and the whole list of others. What we do is we normally use either Bind9, it's a DNS software, or Cipano provided DNS software to do that management. Each has its own advantages, and each has its own advantages, with Cipano mostly. With Cipano mostly offering that web dashboard which people can use to log in. For institutions managing their DNS, I would recommend something. It depends on what they want, but if the team has people with technical capacity, they can go for either by 9, Cipano, although Cipano comes with a financial cost, or other resources like Power DNS or Pi-hole. So, with regards to registration, as you know, you have to always register your domain with I3C. At RENU, we also do that registration for schools. So what we do is we collaborate with, we have an agreement with I3C to to fast track the process of registering institutions. Through that venture, we've tried our best to register most of the schools, and we normally standardize with the sc.ug as the domain name, like something like uma.sc.ug. So we try to maintain that kind of like structure for schools, and then sc.ug for universities, things like miu.sc.ug. Yeah, and this has actually increased the rate at which institutions are being registered to DNS. Then DNS usually serves two main purposes. The DNS service, mainly two purposes. The first one is being the source of truth for your domain. That is commonly known as Authoritative Name Server, or ANS for short. The other one is being a resolver for the institution. At the institution, they use that DNS server to translate addresses from names to the IP addresses. For RENU, what we do is, for resolver, we offer two different flavors depending on the institution. Schools, in most cases, we use Pi-hole, something I'm going to explain on the next page. And then for the others, we use the default bind 9, since it's very easy to set up and all that. So, yeah, we also try to make sure that in case an institution is interested in setting up its own local resolver and not using the RENU ones, we try to go through the whole bit of like supporting them to do that. Now, for schools, given their criticality, schools have students who are very inquisitive but need to be protected from malicious content, adult content, and the whole list of other things. Schools, we particularly set up something, it's called Pi-hole DNS. What sets Pi-hole DNS up aside from others is the fact that it has automatic blocking for most ads, pirate sites, and usually the adult content. That is very critical for students who are both very inquisitive in the age where they are still exploring a lot of things, but they still need to be grounded. So for schools in particular, we always do our best to ensure that their mindsets are maintained clean and focused on academia. So Pi-hole, the one we use, aside from just doing normal blocking of those adult content, it also goes ahead and can block extra content as desired by the school administration. A school can come up and say, during the weekdays, we honestly don't want anyone to use Facebook because we want them to focus on research materials or academic content. And in Pi-hole, it can easily be set up. Yeah, other institutions can also decide that, okay, we also want to implement the same level of controls, but the schools are the primary beneficiaries of that, and so the others, we just add them on. Then we also recommend, for schools, we normally recommend them registering their domains as early as possible, and also give them guidelines like the length of the names, the length of the name, and then we also standardize the sc.ug as mentioned. Yeah. So we try to make sure that the schools, one, they are safe, two, they are all having a standard form of sc.ug. And all this is possible because of our collaboration with I3C, which ensures that registering such domains is fast-tracked. So when it comes to DNS management, DNS actually, the DNS servers do not consume a lot of resources. I'll give an example. The RENU authoritative name server, the one which handles our domain and a couple of others, it actually runs on just 4 CPUs, 4 GB RAM, and I think it's less than 200 GB disks. And this is the space allocated, not the space used. So through this, I want to encourage the teams to not fear to set up a DNS server within their institution. Yeah, it's one of the services, DNS and FreeRadius are some of the services which are very important, but yet use very little resources. And it's a big plus for institutions to have it within their campus. If it's not within your campus, it should at least be within, the DNS you should be using should be within your ISP. That can help to really have a very low latency in terms of translating names to IP addresses. Yeah. So when you go through when you take out the route of setting up the DNS, these options. DNS servers comes in very many services, has a lot of apps. There's Bind9, there's Unbound, there's Pi-hole, there's Power DNS. Each can be having its advantages and disadvantages, and depending on your interests and the level of capacity of technical capacity, you can actually set up any of the two. For resolvers, just caching without the authoritative side, a simple thing like Unbound or Pi-hole can work very well for you. Yeah. So for Bind9, if it's the one you want to set up, there's some little bit of Linux knowledge which is needed, since everything is happening in the black screen of Linux. For Pi-hole, aside from setting it up one time, most of the things is just planning, because all the rest is happening from the front dashboard. Yeah. Then at this point where I want to note that for RENU, we try to make sure that everything is within the country. So all our DNS servers and almost all our servers are physically hosted within the RENU cloud, managed and hosted within the country. So everything is within the country, and basically no data goes out. Okay. Then when it comes to DNS, when you are going to set up one, you need some form of planning. Some restrictions exist, but at least these ones have to be put into consideration. In most cases, when you're setting up a DNS, you are better off setting it up setting up more than one. Most cases, these DNSs will be 2. One called the master, one called the slave. Sometimes some institutions can choose to have 3 or more, but the general standard has always been 2. When you're setting up 2, you try to make sure that they are in different locations, and also in different clusters. The reason why this is important is at times you would find that you have your cluster in maybe the admin block and then the other one at Senate. But when those two are using the same shared storage, if that's such a case, your weakness will be the shared storage, which in case compromised, you would find yourself in a state whereby both of them are inaccessible at the same time. So even when they're in different locations, they have to be in kind of different clusters so that they serve a form of actual high availability and redundancy. Then, if possible, they should be in different subnets. The reason for that is every subnet, it will be routed from the same gateway, which means that if such a gateway is compromised, your access to DNS will also be compromised. So if possible, they should be in different subnets. If you can go a step further and put it in different ASNs, that's well and good, but in most cases you find that an institution does not have more than one ASN which it's using, more than one upstream network provider. So if possible, put it in different ASNs, but at times you would find that they would all be in the same ASN. So that one can be excused, but preferably they should be in different subnets. Then it's also in your best interest to have them in having both IPv4 and thank you. Okay. So if possible, they should also be having IPv4 and IPv6. This world is moving towards IPv6 mostly. In Uganda, we still have like some few IP addresses we are using, and we haven't fully adopted to IPv6 network, but some people have started doing the groundworks. An example is RENU. We offer both IPv4/24 and IPv6. I think it's /6064. So we try to make sure that all our institutions, because these are academic institutions which they need to be up to date on the new, like following the trends. Yeah. So in Uganda, we try for RENU, we try to make sure that all institutions have both an IPv4 and an IPv6, and whenever possible, our network team tries to make sure that they deploy that network not just at the border but also within the campus networks. So through that, we always encourage that even their DNS servers and some of their other critical resources are having both subnets. Yeah, and then if you're registering an authoritative name server, it is in your best interest to have it listed within the I3C, so that the I3C doesn't have only your IPv4, it also has your IPv6. Okay, then there's something which is usually not given the same attention, that's usually reverse records. Records, on the other hand, they are not provided by I3C. Those ones are usually provided by your IP provider. In Africa, that's Afrinic. Afrinic has its issues it's currently going through, but some of the functionalities are actually still working. One of them is being the reverse PTR. The PTR records, it's more of the system admin from I3C had mentioned during the meetings in the morning that we have the root and then UG and then moving forward. For when it comes to the reverse records, that's the reverse records are always instead of name, say iu.sa.ug resolves to this IP address. It's this IP address is resolving to this name. So for the reverse records, they do not follow the structure of dot, then UG dot, then SC dot, then IUIU dot. They follow more of the subnets that they will be having. Africa has a set of subnets which I3C Afrinic manages. Then Afrinic, once it gives you a subnet that for RENU we shall give you 102.34.0.0/16, they also grant you the capacity to manage that the PTR records of that subnet. So RENU, being a network provider, also manages the IPv4s and IPv6 addresses, and by default is given the capacity to manage the PTR records for those domains. RENU, what we do is we try to, where possible, that let's say an institution is interested in managing its own PTR records, we first test and confirm that yes, they are ready, and then we extend that management to them. But in most cases, we find that people mostly just want to register the PTR records for the mail, and like one or two others. In most cases, it's once they register the PTR record for the mail, they are done with using PTR. So in most cases, we just maintain that management on our side, but fully ready to extend it to the institutions. So I just want to bring forward that reverse records, they also have their own critical importance. It's just that at the moment, they are mostly a must when it comes to setting up your mail server. Then when it comes to DNSSEC, this is another thing which I want to encourage the teams to adopt too. At RENU, we started with having our main domain fully enrolled to DNSSEC. That's the one of ren.s.ug. What we are trying to do is also have all the 100+ domains we manage also enrolled to the same structure. So we always recommend having more secure, like being more secure. And so it's another thing which is heavily recommended that all institutions should be enrolling to DNSSEC. Yeah. In case you have any challenges or something, the portal of IRC has measures on how to do all that, and then the documentations for enrolling to DNSSEC is actually publicly available. So it's a process which is much more straightforward. And yeah, I encourage all members to enroll. Then this one is just on the few security policies which we try to implement on for our DNS servers. As I initially mentioned, we have a couple of DNS servers. There's the main ANS servers for RENU, then there's some resolvers for schools, resolvers for main universities, and all that. So what we do is, on our side, we always ensure that it's a maximum of 3 members having access to any of the DNS servers. It kind of like increases the responsibility of the members, in charge of the DNS servers, and also accountability is easier since you know it's only a maximum of 3 members. Then when it comes to firewalls, I think we only allow ICMP and 53 to be allowed by the public. All the others we try to ensure that they are not accessible to uplift the security of the system, the DNS servers. Then when we are doing increments, we follow this date structure. For example, today it would be 2005 09 08 001, with 01 just being in case there's any other additions which are being made. In most cases, what we've noticed is whenever you're making a DNS addition, chances are you add it once or twice, usually twice or 3 times, to just be honest. So this this last 01 is just for the number of times you've done that in that day. And with this said, I just move on to the key takeaways. DNS setup is it's very possible with minimal resources. That's something which has to be known. And then the redundancy and high availability of DNS is a must. DNS is one of those services which, while it's working, everything is okay. But when it has challenges, it just normally seems like as if the internet has gone off. So in conclusion, I just want to say that DNS is the silent enabler of the network. It's usually often overlooked until the staff mention that I don't have internet. And then you begin the battle of finding out where the challenge is. So the DNS needs more recognition than it currently holds. Yeah, and I've reached the end of the run-through. I accept any questions or inquiries at right now. Any questions?
How many DNS servers has RENU set up in the country, or it only has one instance?
Okay, thank you. I think there are like 8. There's the 2 which are the authoritative name servers for the main RENU, and like 3 other domains. Then there is another set of 2 that's for the web hosting service. Those ones manage about 114 domains. And then there's a set of 6, that's 3 pairs, meant to manage the school's access. So for schools, we tried to set up in a way that we wanted to give it per region, but then we noticed that we could merge some regions together. So that's 6, because we do 2 pairs for each. So that's 6, 2, and then 2. So that makes it 10. There's one behind you.
I may have 3 questions.
Okay.
One, you mentioned about the PTR and reverse records, but it didn't come out clearly to me what is the benefit per se to me as a normal consumer of internet, or how I can make it a business case, or what impact would it generally have if I ensure that I'm correctly labeling my domain and IPv and IP numbers. And then second question, I like the last statement, but I would have loved for you to also share, considering that you are very secretive with the management of the authoritative DNS server, how are we going to make it more recognizable as a critical service for the internet? And then the third question was more of, I would have liked also for you to help us with the planning, the way you've described how you're setting up the DNSs and what would be the benefit more, considering, for example, now we have fiber, different parts of the country. Why would I then put a DNS server in Lira, or why would I put it in Mbarara? What are the benefits more towards setting up a regional DNS server as opposed to having it locally hosted when the speeds are very fast? I submit.
Okay. So I'll begin with the one for PTR records. So PTR records, currently their advantage is on webmail. That's the biggest advantage, that's where their biggest advantage lies. Nowadays, when you send an email to one of these big giants of Gmail, Outlook, where most of our emails can reside, and in fact, is it? I don't remember is it UC Block? One of the things they check for when they are confirming whether this email is coming from a legitimate mail server is, does it have the proper DMARC records? Does it have the associate TXT records? The MX records, when I try to check the MX records, do I get the same name? The same when I do a PTR record. So let's say the server is mail.uc.ac.ug, resolving to, let's say, IP 102.34.162.25. The server then, the mail server then checks, does 102.34.161.65, does it resolve back to mail.ucu? If it does, if any of those things fail, or generally if any of those things fail, your score, they call it, there's a score they use, your spam score, is affected. And if you have a lot of things failing, they will just reject or quarantine it, saying that this is not coming from a trusted source. So there, PTR is one of the critical things which are necessary. And it's one of the things which make the PTR records very much necessary. Other locations are currently a bit of like option, no? But when you have a PTR record and you are trying to like check on an IP, the IP, since it has a record which confirms what domain it resolves to, let's say you're just pinging it, you would find that when it's giving you a response, it actually gives you now a response with as well as its name. So all the others, the advantage is not yet so much profound, with the exception of the mail. So all the others, the advantage is not so much profound, but it helps you when, let's say, at RENU we use PTR records when we are trying to like do traces. Whenever you're doing a trace route and then instead of getting the IP addresses in the list, you just get the names. It's easier for you to know, okay, my traffic is passing through this chain. And most of the other ISPs also do this, implement a similar structure that you would find that after a certain point, you start seeing the names, just names that this is SICOM Kenya, this is maybe SICOM South Africa, and then they will give you that trail all the way until you reach your final destination. So for some institutions, aside from mail, you would find that the other advantages are not so profound. But eventually you would find that it works better for you if you already have an A and PTR record. Okay, how to make it hard? This one I didn't capture it well. Plans. Let me just go back there. The second question I didn't capture it well, so let me first. Enabling. Then actually there we do some little bit of limiting, but in most cases when a DNS server is set up and ready, you mostly just need to add it in your server and your end devices, and you'll be able to work. But in most cases if let's say your institution is a bit of like far away or has very little bandwidth if it's subscribed to, it's in your best interest to actually have a local DNS so that your traffic is mostly what's going out and not being wasted by the constant DNS requests. So there's benefits to having a DNS locally, and some of them includes using less bandwidth on DNS requests moving internationally or outside your network. At RENU, we implement this whole thing of all internal RENU traffic is uncapped, so in case you're trying to access the DNSs within the RENU network, that traffic is not part of your main subscribed bandwidth, and so there we try to make the lives easier for the institutions as long as they're using our DNSs. But in case you want to do more, you can actually set up a local resolver within your campus. That way you would find that most of the DNS requests, traffic requested on DNS requests is stopping within the internal network. Okay.
Maybe to add to what you're saying, I think you use the comment, the internet is down. But I would have also thought that the good job you're already doing with the hosting services locally would mean those services would still be available within that network if they were hosting a DNS server in that network. Well, the internet will be down, but some services will still be available.
The internet down is actually a general comment we receive when someone cannot access the resource they want to access. So it doesn't matter whether they wanted to access their own HR system, which is hosted locally. As long as they see that they can't access it, the internet down is a general term we receive for anything inaccessible. So it's something we got used to, that whether it's just the HR system, whether someone has messed up the DHCP server and they can no longer get IP addresses, we'll just get that general comment, the internet is down. So it's a common analogy we have.
Yeah, but I liked it because it's kind of two-edged. One, DNS is critical, but you find most people are using Google's DNS. You are advising us to set up our local one as well. So I was thinking it is good to have a local DNS, But the challenge with that, it comes with its technical competency and power and all that. At the same time, it is easier for me to just set up and put Googles. But if my link to the Google server goes off, it means for me, if I'm up country and I cannot have access to where the nearest Google server is, I will also have not have internet.
Yeah. That part is also true.
Okay, this discussion is pretty interesting. I'd just like to highlight just a few things as I take over my position from